Welcome to the September 2nd Village Board Legislative Session. This meeting is called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's great to see folks in the flesh and see some of our friends and colleagues here on Zoom. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. We even have community members here in person for the first time in months. So this is, it's still allowed by the open meetings law for us to meet virtually. So our friends in the town, for example, are going to continue meeting virtually for all of their meetings. We are going to continue meeting virtually for our work sessions. However, we have been doing a lot of work that is coming to a point where we need to hear from the public. In fact, tonight you will see we are calling for half a dozen public hearings related to local laws that we are proposing, and we have also anticipating that we'll have an environmental scoping session related to our comprehensive plan that we are likely to be voting on later tonight. Those are opportunities for the public to speak with us. Now, a few months ago, when we stopped meeting in public, we had a couple of concerns. We hadn't yet figured out how to ever be in a room together, and we also were just really, really overwhelmed emotionally and logistically in every way with facing COVID. And while this is still a very, very difficult time for so many of us from a healthcare perspective, from a financial perspective, from in so many ways, but we have, for the most part, found a way to move forward with some sort of a new normal. And with that, we feel that it's appropriate for us to move forward with some of these village initiatives that call for public engagement. And so we're making the best of all of the opportunities that we have for the public to engage. What we found with the hybrid meetings is that in some cases, we had more participation from folks who have access and a comfort level with working with this virtual format. We had high rates of participation, and that's terrific. But there are some people, in fact, some folks who are here tonight who I know would much prefer to be able to come speak with us in person. So what we are trying to figure out tonight, and we have had some bumps along the road already, and I'm sure there's more for us to figure out, is how do we make the most of all of the opportunities for us to engage with the public. And so tonight is our first trial run with this hybrid meeting format, so we thank you for your patience as we figure this out, and we know that when we get back here in 2 weeks and we have the public hearings, it will be that much more smooth operating at that time. There are, yes? That's okay. I mean, we can. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, why don't we just, Martha, you want to do the roll call?
Okay, Trustee Fritchie?
Present.
Trustee Levin? Trustee Lopez? Trustee Casada?
Present.
Mayor Garrity?
Present.
Okay. Moving on to mayor's and trustees' announcements.
Is there anybody who has any announcements to make?
None for you, Bob?
See if that works. Hopefully it can be heard. Hello, everybody. People here, people via Zoom. And sorry if I interrupted. I just realized I was looking at the agenda. I'm sorry?
Oh, you're muted.
I am muted. Oh, multitask. Okay. Great, thanks. I was apologizing for, I think I interrupted the mayor. She wasn't quite done. Sorry about that. I welcome everybody in Zoom and here. Yes, I'm hearing that weird back sound also. I wanted to just share with folks at home and here, we received a very nice note from the village manager. There is someone who regularly, that shared with us via a recorded message for us to hear, who was very kind and is in the process of getting cancer treatment at, that's going to work? Okay. At Phelps 3 times a week for cancer. She wanted to let all of us know, that includes staff, village manager, trustees, really everyone, through a lovely message, too long to repeat here, that she's 69 and has been driving for decades via our village to get to Phelps, and that she always thought this was a lovely village. While she doesn't live here, she just drives through here, and that she's just amazed at how the village, in her words, looked great for a long time, then a few hard years, and now is just blossoming with life and beauty, and is just a beautiful downtown area. I just wanted to share that because oftentimes we get the complaints, which is reasonable. People don't often show up and tell us things are just fine, thank you. They usually have issues, problems to solve, opinions and comments to make. I wanted to just share that moment because when I read it today, it sort of touched my heart. It's been a really tough 2020. It doesn't seem to be getting easier as we end the year. It seems to sort of still be with us. But for someone who is battling cancer and has to get chemo 3 times a week, that's a real reality check. And to take the time to thank everyone is it just made me have perspective. I wanted to share that with you. So that's it. That was my only announcement, because for me, that sort of made my day. And so much of it goes to the staff, obviously, for all the work that they do. So she thanked everybody, but I'll do it again.
It was a lovely message. Thank you for sharing that. Trustee Quesada, do you have any comments this evening? Trustee Quesada, did you have any comments this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's definitely good to see everyone in this virtual world, I guess, halfway there. I think pretty much all the residents of the village and all our staff that has done a fantastic job to keep the numbers down. I know we struggle a little bit, but I think we get in there. And a little bit of a good news, I guess, and I want to thank Jamie on this one, is because we got an email from her early today or yesterday in regards to the census. We hit 62.9, I believe, so far, so which is about 1.8% higher than we did last 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. So that's definitely something to be proud of. I want those numbers obviously to keep going up. So please, the people that have not done that part yet, please go to the website, open the door for some of the census people that come in with an ID. They just need some additional information or just to verify some of the stuff. And obviously, if you're not comfortable with that, definitely just do it online. So and that's pretty much what I have so far. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we do have a little bit of numbers news. So we're hoping that the census numbers keep going up and that the active case number keeps going down. Our number of active cases for COVID has been fluctuating over the last several weeks between 6 and 13. As of today, we are at 12. A couple of days ago, we were at 6. It was a lot nicer being at 6. It's a good reminder for us as we see universities really struggling with students coming back and coming in from all over the country. Folks are coming home from vacations. I was one of the many people who was on vacation. If you were out of town in any of the states that have been identified as needing to quarantine, we ask that you please take that very, very seriously. The guidelines are on the state website. And I know from having reached out on behalf of a resident who is herself a first responder, she was asking if there was any way for her to not quarantine if she were to go down to one of these states to help her 86-year-old mother move from one home into another where she was downsizing. And the governor's office got back to me and said, no, I'm sorry, there's not. She must quarantine. If she's an essential worker, then they can figure out how for her to work. And if you do not quarantine, you are subject to fines from New York State. So I ask that you please do follow that guideline very carefully. It's on the list of the really important things we need to do. No non-essential travel. Obviously wear your mask, keep your distance, wash your hands. We know all of these things, and especially now as we see schools opening up, everyone getting back into spaces where we will be engaging with each other in ways that we haven't for a number of months. It is ever more important for us to be mindful of doing everything that we can to keep the numbers down. None of us is immune to being a carrier or being a victim of COVID. The census numbers are great, and thank you, Jamie. I just want to give a shout out to Jamie Hoffman, who has really led our effort in the village for the keeping us on track and keeping all of the posters and the signs, and I know we have some lawn signs that we're going to start seeing popping up more and more in the village. We were the first municipality that was listed in last week's update, in the last update from Commissioner Drummond at the county, because we had one of the highest response rates over this weekend. So kudos to everyone who is getting out there. If you responded and you told your friends and your neighbors, or you posted and you shared and you let folks know how important it is that you respond to the census, how that much of a difference that makes for our community. The census numbers influence how much we get in funding for things like sales tax, like first responders, all these things that are making, like healthcare services, all of these things that are keeping us safe and healthy today. And it's very, very important that everyone is counted, and it doesn't matter where you were born or how old you are. If you were alive and living in the village of Ossining on April 1st of 2020, we want to know it. And then the last thing that I will mention is about voting. We just so happen to be in the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center this evening. And if you are a registered voter in Ossining, this is your early voting location. Early voting will be happening again this round, and it happens from Saturday, October 24th through Sunday, November 1st. The times vary a little bit depending on what day of the week it is, but that's 9 days of early voting right here in this building. That's a really great way for you to be able to vote in person and avoid long lines and crowds. So I encourage you to consider early voting. If you have not done that before, it's only been around for the last year in New York State. But it is certainly preferable to having to wait potentially in a line on Election Day. Obviously, you can also vote by absentee ballot, and I encourage you to go to the Westchester Board of Elections website for information about how to do that online or how to print up forms online. The actual Election Day is November 3rd, and there is still time to register to vote or to update your voter registration. That deadline is coming, though, next month. It goes till October 9th. You can register or update your voter registration, and just want to remind folks, if you have a young person at home who is not quite yet old enough to vote, they can pre-register when they are 16 or 17. They lowered that pre-registration age last year with the updates in Albany to the voting laws. And Sandy Galiff, our Assemblywoman, is hosting a virtual town hall tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. about voting. So if you have more questions or concerns about voting, I encourage you to reach out to the Assemblywoman's office or do a little search for the Assemblywoman. You'll be able to get the link to the Zoom meeting. She's having a virtual meeting all about voting tomorrow evening at 7.
Close the box. You say what language you want your ballot in. You say where you want it sent. It gets immediately sent to the local Board of Elections, and you're done. Nothing easier. So I would suggest that if you want to go that way, feel free. It's very easy. You can do it through the county board if you want to, but this is through the State Board of Elections, and it works really simply. So just a heads up for that so that you can avoid the mail and get everything taken care of. Thank you. All done for tonight.
Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. Last week, the District Attorney's Office announced the sentencing of Mario Mielis to 14.5 years in state prison for a shooting that occurred in February of 2019 on Van Cortlandt Avenue here in Ossining. This closes a difficult chapter in the village's history in that we suffered a homicide and a nearly fatal shooting within the course of a couple of weeks last year. Glad to have closed that chapter and moved on to new things, but I'll remind everybody that a sentencing doesn't erase what's going on and doesn't take away from the trauma and the injuries from the victim. So, while we're glad to move on from that case, we recognize that there is a victim and a family that still suffers from that. So, that said, that defendant will be away for quite some time with a sentence of 14.5 years for attempted murder. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had a number of vehicles that have been gone through in the village. These are completely preventable crimes in that what it appears this is a trend around Westchester County where folks are coming from other areas and seeking unlocked vehicles with goods left inside them. So we are urging every single resident to please lock your doors. Lock your car doors overnight. In certain other communities, they've found that people are leaving, what we're seeing in Ossining so far, dozens of cars being stolen because people leave the key in the car unlocked. What we've had in Ossining is a number of cars that have been gone through. These have occurred here, and it is following the trend that we see across the county. But vehicles being unleft with either wallets or other good expensive items that you value when you do leave your car, please lock those doors in order to prevent people from taking your goods. We are working with police departments around Westchester County to look into these things, and there is a task force created to try and address this as a countywide problem. Like I said, glad to hear that we have far less than everybody else does, but as we see this starting to become a growing trend in Ossining, I think it's important we let everybody know so people can.
Okay, moving on to organization announcements. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to make an organization announcement?
Nick Caputo, Chairman of the Ossining Conservative Committee. I had a discussion with Victoria about the sign Black Lives Matter that was on a lawn. I went around, spoke to a lot of policemen. They're very upset that that was on there. Thanks to Victoria, I thank you. The sign is now gone. I'll give you, when I get to the personal of me, I'll give you my background, because I grew up on Broadway in an interracial neighborhood. So then you'll understand where I'm coming from. Okay, now, Black Lives Matter sign, when people started Black Lives Matter, why didn't they call it All Black Lives Matter? That's what aggravates me more than anything. Why? Because Sleazeball, Sharpton, and Voucher attorney Crump, that's C-R-U-M-P, and all other charlatans, race baiters, and agitators love to swarm to every cop shooting of a black. Where are they when many other blacks are killed? 2 black officers were recently killed, Captain Dorn and Officer Bohannon out of state. Where were Black Lives Matter then? Okay, and just to educate all of you, because I think I'm the oldest in here at 76, okay, more blacks are killed by blacks than white killing blacks, cops killing blacks, and black illnesses combined. Where are all these so-called do-gooders? Nowhere to be found, because a black killing of another black doesn't serve their purpose. Not that any black life should be taken lightly, but understand one thing. The majority of police officers are good, dedicated men and women. Remember, blue lives matter too. There are no protests regarding blacks killed by other blacks. Why don't Black Lives Matter go into the cities and try to help inner cities, Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, and other with their problems? None of them do. They
Mr.
just
Caputo?
go to a cop shooting.
Mr. Caputo, I have to ask you
Time's
to,
up?
thank you, yes.
For the 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. That was, I'm going to come back now to the Westchester County Conservative Committee.
He only gets
We'll
2 minutes.
continue. Okay.
He only gets 2 minutes.
How I got this shirt and got involved with Back in Blue Lives Matter. A year or 2 ago, you had pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. What kind of cops do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. Did anybody else hear that? Did that bother anybody else in this room or that's watching this
Mr.
program?
Caputo, Mr. Caputo,
Okay.
I have to ask you to please sit down.
Pardon me?
I have to ask you to please sit down.
Oh, my tone. I'm an angry American right now, that's why.
I understand.
But anyway, there would be an outrage, and I'll give you my background where I came from so you'll understand, and you won't think I'm a racist or prejudice or discrimination. There
Mr.
would be
Caputo?
an outrage if
Mr.
someone
Caputo?
said, there would be an outrage if someone said, blacks in a blanket, fry them like chicken, what kind
Mr.
of
Caputo?
blacks do we want? Dead blacks, when do we want them? Now. There is
Mr.
no
Caputo.
difference in either of those statements about
Mr.
cops
Caputo,
or
thank you.
blacks.
Thank you for your comments. Please have a seat.
Is my 2 minutes up?
This is a time for organizational announcements. Your
Now-
time is up.
Now I got my state,
No, you only get,
my state committee now.
Sir, an organizational announcement is if you have an announcement related to something that's going on with your organization.
Is there something that somebody here didn't like that I was saying that they questioned? Is somebody questioning what I said? Does anybody have any opinion on it?
Do you have an announcement about something happening with an organization that you are involved in?
Yeah, I have another announcement. That's right, I'll sneak that in because I'm going to do my personal for 3 minutes at the end, visitors recognition.
You're welcome to wait until the visitor recognition.
Lots of people saw it and somebody can take action. I hope the police chief saw it.
Okay, village board resolutions. Is there anybody here from the public who would like to address the board on any of the resolutions this evening?
If you'd like to discuss any other resolutions that are on the agenda tonight, now would be the time.
Like I said, before you discuss it, we should talk on it.
If there's, yes, any of the resolutions that we are planning to discuss tonight, you can make comments on that.
Okay, seeing no one, approval of minutes, August 11, 2020. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the August 11, 2020 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Approval of minutes, August 19, 2020. Resolved that the town board, resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the August 19, 2020 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Comments on the board? I will just comment that I'm going to abstain from this vote because I was not present. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Abstain.
Approval of voucher detail September 2, 2020. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated September 2nd, 2020 in the amount of, just give me 1 second, I'm so sorry, of $391,042.45.
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Authorizing the village manager to sign a memorandum of understanding with Sustainable Westchester Incorporated, whereas the Village of Ossining adopted local legislation to enable community choice aggregation, CCA Village of Ossining Code Chapter 10, and whereas the current electric service agreement for the Sustainable Westchester CCA program terminates on December 31st, 2020, and whereas the village wants to continue to engage the services of Sustainable Westchester Incorporated as the program manager for CCA and the operation and maintenance of the program. Now therefore be it resolved that upon review by the Corporation Counsel, the village manager is authorized to sign a memorandum of understanding MOU with Sustainable Westchester Incorporated, and be it further resolved that the purpose of the MOU is to A, establish the village's participation in the CCA program to be managed by Sustainable Westchester Incorporated under the 2021 Electric Service Agreement, ESA. B, to affirm that the village and Sustainable Westchester Incorporated agreed to adhere to the terms and conditions of the 2021 ESA in the event that ESA is executed, and C, to affirm that the village and Sustainable Westchester Incorporated agreed to execute the 2021 ESA in accord with the terms of the MOU. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'd like to comment. I did get to watch this portion of the meeting a couple of weeks ago, and my colleagues had a very thoughtful discussion with our staff about this MOU and about this CCA in general, and I'm really pleased to be able to serve again on a board with that is supportive of the village being at the forefront of encouraging renewable energy here in New York and for all of Ossining. And there were a couple of things. I believe it was 2015 when the CCA actually started, and the village and our friends in the town also were among the first communities that signed up to join the CCA and to do it with 100% renewable energy. So I'm very excited that we have been doing that now I guess we're moving into our 6th year with that, or in our 6th year with that. So that's great. And the one thing that people asked is if you have solar on your own home, which Ossining is also at the forefront of that, and including a number of us here in this room, you probably provide most of your electric energy needs from your solar panels. But if there's ever a time where you need energy beyond what you are providing, that is drawn from unless you have an ESCO, that is drawn from the energy that we will be signing up for here as part of the CCA. You wouldn't necessarily realize what's going on because you just get your Con Ed bill and you pay your Con Ed bill, and most of us don't look too carefully, but what the difference is where does the energy come from? The lines are managed and maintained, all the transmission is handled by Con Ed, but where is the energy purchased from? And this energy is purchased on the renewable energy market for us, and they get the bulk buying power because a number of communities, now dozens of communities, work together as part of this community choice aggregation, and it was landmark legislation when it was enabled back in 2015, and thanks to the leadership of the folks in Sustainable Westchester. We're very, very pleased to be able to participate in that. So I'm hoping that this vote is going to go as I am telegraphing that it may go. So I'll be really disappointed if it doesn't. Does anybody else want to comment before I send it back to the clerk?
After that build-up, I think we were all, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but we've discussed this. And there's, I think, more to come was what was interesting in the conversation. Their website is terrific. If people want to go on their website and understand. I don't remember, Jamie, if it's on our website, their links. Am I not speaking clearly?
You're muted on the web thing.
I am sorry, and I'm not used to this laptop, sorry. Sorry, I'm not used to the laptop either, I use a different kind. So I think that they sent some information via one of the emails. I don't know if it's on our website, the Sustainable Westchester information. Okay, but on Sustainable Westchester, it's not only the past, which the mayor so eloquently brought up, but they've got a whole bunch of great links to figure out how to read your bill, why it's worthwhile, recommendations that they're making. It all works well together, and more people are using it. We had solar, we love it. I say that every time to encourage others to do the same, so I'm in support.
Madam Clerk, I believe we are ready to vote. I'm not seeing any others who want to comment.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Authorizing the village manager to sign a memorandum of understanding with the New York Power Authority. Resolved that upon review by the Corporation Counsel, the village manager is authorized to sign a memorandum of understanding with the New York Power Authority for 3 village-owned sites be included in the New York Power Authority's Westchester Community Solar Aggregation Request for Proposals scheduled to be released in September/October 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So, comments on the board for this one. We've got a theme going here. I'll just say this is really exciting. It's not actually committing us to anything, but for many years we have wanted to have solar on village-owned properties, and there have been a lot of obstacles. While individuals, property owners have been able to have solar for years, and because there have been so many incentives to do that, the incentives were not there for municipalities, and in fact there were a lot of obstacles. And now we have this community solar opportunity that is coming to us through Sustainable Westchester and NYPA, working with the county. We sent them a list, thank you very much to our staff for putting together that list of every village-owned property and had them evaluated for which would be good candidates for this particular community solar program, and there were 3 that were identified, and I'm very pleased that the 3 that were identified are going to be part of this Westchester Community Solar Aggregation Request for Proposals. And so we're not at the end of the process, we're at the beginning of the process, but I'm really pleased that it's a long-awaited opportunity for us to have solar here on municipal property in the village. Anybody else want to comment before we, I think, enthusiastically support this as well? Madam Clerk?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Authorizing the Finance Department to impose a $5 per unit administrative fee for those residential units covered by the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. Whereas by resolution dated September 5th, 2018, the Board of Trustees declared that an emergency existed as set forth in the Emergency Tenant Protection Act, ETPA, and whereas by resolution dated February 2015, 2019, the Board of Trustees modified the September 5th, 2018 resolution so that the ETPA would only apply to buildings completed prior to January 1st, 1974 with 21 or more units, and whereas New York Consolidated Law Section 8628B provides the legislative body of any city, town, or village acting to impose regulation of residential units pursuant to the provisions of this act may impose on the owner of every building containing housing accommodation subject to such regulation an annual charge for each such accommodation in such amount as it deems necessary for the expenses to be incurred in the administration of such regulation. And whereas New York Unsolicited Law Section 8628E provides in part the failure to pay the prescribed assessment not to exceed $20 per unit for any accommodation subject to this act shall constitute a charge due and owing to such city, town, or village which has imposed an annual charge for each such housing accommodation pursuant to subdivision B of this section. And such city, town, or village shall be authorized to provide for the enforcement of the collection of such charges by commencing an action or proceeding for the recovery of such fees or by the filing of a lien upon the building and lot. Such methods for the enforcement of the collection of such charges should be sole remedy for the enforcement of this section. And whereas pursuant to the 2019 Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, the annual ETPA stabilization fee is $20 per unit. And whereas the village received from New York State Homes and Community Renewal an invoice of $17,700 based upon a charge of $20 per unit with 885 eligible units. And whereas the village may assess a surcharge for its administrative costs in connection with the ETPA program. Now therefore be it resolved that the treasurer is authorized to assess a $5 per unit surcharge for each of the 885 eligible ETPA units, and be it further resolved that the treasurer shall have the finance department send out notices to the owners of the 885 eligible units appraising the owners of the $5 surcharge, and that the payment must be made to the Village of Ossining Finance Department by December 1st, 2020, and be it further resolved that the aforementioned notice to the owners of the 885 eligible units also shall advise the owners that if payment is not made by December 1st, 2020, the outstanding amount shall be added as a lien on the building's property tax bill. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adoption of Village of Ossining Records Access Policy. Whereas Article 6 of the Public Officers Law, known as the Freedom of Information Law, notes the following in the Legislative Declaration, Section 84. The legislator finds that a free society is maintained when the government is responsive and responsible to the public, and when the public is aware of governmental actions. The more open a government is with its citizenry, the greater the understanding and participation of the public in government. And whereas, pursuant to Section 87(1)(a) of the Public Officers Law, the governing body of each public corporation shall promulgate uniform rules and regulations for all agencies in such public corporation pursuant to such general rules and regulations as may be promulgated by the Committee on Open Government in conformity with the provisions of this article pertaining to the administration of this article. And whereas the rules and regulations shall include but not be limited to A, the times and places where such records are available, B, the persons from whom such records may be obtained, and C, the fees for copies of records. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining adopts the Records Access Policy published below, and that a copy of the policy shall be posted on the village's webpage with copies made available in the offices of the village departments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just, Madam Clerk, if you could hold off for just a moment, because it was called to my attention. As I said, this is a work in progress. We are trying to be able to hear from everyone in every way possible. And while I did open it up for folks who were in the room already, if they wanted to make an organizational announcement or comment on any of the upcoming resolutions, I did not extend that invitation to the folks who have joined us virtually, and we do have a few folks who are in our virtual room, and so I'm just pausing now for a moment. If there's anybody who is participating virtually, there will be an opportunity for everyone at the end to have visitor recognition, where you may comment for up to 3 minutes about anything of general public interest. But if you have an announcement to make, or if you have any remarks related to any of tonight's many resolutions, you may raise your hand now. I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand, so I think that's probably enough time for folks to have figured that out. And I just thank you for your patience, and please bear with us as we figure out how to do this to the very best of our ability to incorporate everyone. All right, Madam Clerk, please continue.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I
all
thought we did
opposed?
vote, sorry. Aye.
Okay. Determination of environmental significance of the preparation and implementation of an update to the village's comprehensive plan and potential related amendments to the village's zoning code, chapter 270. Whereas pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review, SEQRA, and corresponding regulations thereto, and by resolution dated July 15, 2020, the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees, the Board, assumed the role of lead agency for the comprehensive plan update adoption and related amendments to the village's zoning code, the action, and whereas the village's consultant, BFG, planning in consultation with village staff, prepared for the board in draft from parts 2 and 3 of the full environmental assessment form, EAF, and whereas, based on its assessment of the action's potential environmental impacts and their magnitude, the village's consultant and staff conclude that the action may result in one or more large and important impacts that may have a significant negative impact on the environment, specifically with regard to impacts on traffic and schools, and whereas the board has reviewed the drafts parts 2 and 3 of the full EAF and believes that the EAF is complete and identifies the action's potential impacts on the environment. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1. The Board of Trustees hereby adopts parts 2 and 3 of the full environmental assessment form as prepared by the village's consultants and staff and reviewed by the board. 2. Pursuant to Part 617 of the implementing regulations pertaining to Article 8 SEQRA of the Environmental Conservation Law, the board hereby determines that the action may result in one or more impacts that may have a significant negative impact on the environment and hereby adopts and issues a positive declaration, and that a generic environmental impact statement, GEIS, will be prepared in accord with 6 NYCRR 617.10 and other associated regulations. 3. A draft scoping document will be circulated and subject to public participation pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.8D. The Board of Trustees hereby directs that the positive declaration be filed, published, and circulated in accordance with the terms of applicable laws and regulations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Was there a second?
Second.
All right, and we are joined here this evening with, by Frank Fish and Simon Cates from BFJ, who are consulting planners, as well as our Village Director of Planning, Jaime Hernandez, who can help us if there are any questions about this, or does anybody want to just provide any insights since you made it here to our meeting? Is there anything you just want to provide as some further information beyond what's in the resolution before we vote this evening?
Nope.
Oh, Frank, we can't hear you. We're good. All right, so it looks like we are just ready to move forward with the vote, unless there's somebody on the board who wanted to comment any further? No?
Good.
Okay, good. What this is really an opportunity for us to have greater scrutiny and discussion publicly from an environmental perspective about what is likely to be included in our comprehensive plan. So I'm really pleased to have that every time there's an opportunity for there to be more community engagement with this, that is a good thing for us. And I think we're going to talk about that again with another resolution coming up, right? Is there another resolution where we talk about the scoping session related to this coming up? Yes, I see Zoom people nodding their heads. All right, good. Well, we'll clarify that and when that comes up. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Authorization for the village manager to sign an agreement with Nelson Nygaard Consulting Associates for a mobility and parking management study. Resolved that upon review by the Corporation Counsel, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with Nelson Nygaard Consulting Associates Incorporated, 1250 Broadway, New York, New York, 1003-1624, to conduct a mobility and parking management study, and be it further resolved that the terms of the agreement are detailed in the July 27, 2020 response to request for proposals, and be it further resolved that the budget for this study is $120,000, and the village has been awarded a grant of $60,000 from New York State Empire State Development, which amount is to be matched by the village. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Comments on the board?
You're muted.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution to conduct public hearing on draft scoping documents for the comprehensive plan update and potential related amendments to the village's zoning code. Whereas, pursuant to the implementing regulations for the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQRA, found in Chapter 6 of the New York Code's Rules and Regulations, NYCRR, and more specifically 6 NYCRR 617.8a, that the primary goals of scoping are to focus the environmental impact statement, EIS, on potentially adverse impacts and to eliminate consideration of those impacts that are irrelevant or non-significant, and that scoping is required for all EIS, including generic environmental impact statements, GEIS, and whereas the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees is in the process of undertaking a review of its comprehensive plan for possible updates with associated amendments to the village's zoning code, action, and whereas pursuant to SEQRA, corresponding regulations in Village Code Chapter 118 Environmental Quality Review, the Board of Trustees as lead agency determined that the action may result in one or more impacts that may have significant negative impact on the environment, and adopted a resolution and issued a positive declaration, which resolution indicated that a GEIS will be prepared and scoping on the action will be conducted, and whereas the village's consultant, BFG Planning, and village staff prepared for the Board of Trustees a draft scoping document pertaining to the action, and the Board of Trustees and village staff have reviewed the draft scope and believe that it focuses on the relevant environmental impacts of the action and describes what should be contained in the generic environmental impact statement, and whereas pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.8d, scoping must include an opportunity for public participation, and the lead agency may either provide a period of time for the public to review and provide written comments on a draft scope, or provide for public input through the use of meetings, exchanges of written materials, or other means. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. 1. The Board of Trustees will hold a public hearing on September 24, 2020 at 7 p.m. at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, during which the public will be able to participate in the preparation of the proposed. 2. Due to the current declared state of emergency and associated executive orders, in-person attendance at the scoping session will be limited, and those attending in person will be subject to temperature and health screening. All attendees must comply with social distancing and face covering protocols. For those who wish to watch and/or participate remotely, the village will provide in the public notice and on its webpage the necessary link. 3. The Board of Trustees hereby directs that the draft scope be circulated to all involved agencies and made available to any individual or interested agency that has expressed an interest in writing to the Board of Trustees. 4. The Board of Trustees will accept written comments on the draft scoping document between September 14th and October 16th, 2020. And 5. The Board of Trustees directs the notice of such comment period and public hearing be published in accordance with the terms of applicable laws and regulations. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, comments on the board. This is actually what I was starting to talk about before, which is we'll be back in this room. And so if those of you who are keeping track at home, we're moving forward with our hybrid format, and we're figuring it out. So this is our first time doing it. We'll be back here in 2 weeks for our next legislative session on the 16th. And then on a Thursday, September 24th, we intend to be back here for the scoping session at 7 p.m. And you'll notice sometimes we're here, sometimes we're not. We're here in this room when it's an opportunity for the public to comment. Our goal is to make it as easy for the public to comment when there's a public hearing, when there's a public scoping session, whether they prefer to do that in person in a safe, socially distanced manner, or online. So we're trying to have as much public engagement as possible. So this is related to the scoping session that will be happening, or that I anticipate will be happening September 24th, which is a Thursday. It's in addition to our regular meeting that week. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Adoption of retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records. Resolved by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining, the retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records, LGS 1, issues pursuant to Article 57A of the Arts and Cultural Affairs Law and containing legal minimum retention periods for local government records, is hereby adopted for use by all officers in legally disposing of valueless records listing therein, and be it further resolved that in accordance with Article 57A Only those records will be disposed of that are described in retention and disposition schedule for New York Local Government Records, LGS1, after they have met the minimum retention periods described therein. B. Only those records will be disposed of that do not have sufficient administrative, fiscal, legal, or historical value to merit retention beyond established legal minimum periods. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Comments on the board? Thank you all for your in-depth discussion about this. Thank you, Stuart, for guiding us through this process and helping make sure that we understand what's being asked of us with this. Madam Clerk.
Okay, just to go back, Trustee Levin, you did it first and then Trustee Fritchie, right? Because you guys were muted when you
Correct.
moved and seconded.
Sorry about that. No.
Yes, sorry
Let me
about
do that again. That's correct.
Okay,
And
thank
just
you.
lost something.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I just lost this.
Okay, call for public hearing proposed local law 1, 2020 titled, A Local Law Amending Chapter 250 Vehicles and Traffic of the Village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on September 16, 2020 at the Joseph J. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard to consider proposed local law 1, 2020 titled, A Local Law Amending Chapter 250 Vehicles and Traffic of the Village of Ossining Code, which local law proposes to revise sections 250-33 tag parking fees relating to municipal parking lots. And be it further resolved, the following can be found online. It's just the links for the meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I need a second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So for the following resolution, starting from L all the way down to Q, the resolutions, the part that I'm not going to read, it's just telling the public where they can access the meetings if they want to do it via Zoom, which that can be found online and can also be found at the clerk's office if anybody has any questions for those, okay? Call for public hearing proposed local law 2 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 75 Article 2 Animals Dog Control of the Village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on September 16, 2020 at the Joseph J. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard to consider proposed local law 2 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 75 Article 2 Dog Control Animals of the Village of Ossining Code, which local law proposes to delete section 7514 licensing relating to dog licensing as our responsibility is with the town of Ossining. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Call for public hearing proposed local law 3 2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 91 Article 3 Building Construction Fees Chapter 233 Subdivision of Land and amending 270 Zoning of the Village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on September 16, 2020 at the Joseph J. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard to consider proposed local law 2, 2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 91, Article 3, Building Construction Fees, Chapter 233, Subdivision of Land, and Chapter 270, Zoning of the Village of Ossining Code, which local law proposes to ensure reimbursement to the village for the actual costs of professional consulting and village professional staff services with respect to review of land use application. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Call for a public hearing proposed local law 4 2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 190 Parks and Recreation of the Village of Ossining Code to add a new article, Article 4, Local Youth Bureau. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on September 16, 2020 at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 4/2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 190 Parks and Recreation of the Village of Ossining Code to add a new Article 4, Local Youth Bureau, which local law proposes to establish a local youth bureau to put into effect and operate approved youth programs and to allow the County of Westchester to distribute to the local youth bureau state aid. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Call for a public hearing, proposed local law 5/2020, titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 212, Article 8, Part 2, Sewer Rents, and Chapter 259, Article 5, Service Rates and Charges of the Village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on September 16, 2020 at the Joseph J. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 5/2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 212, Article 8, Part 2, Sewer Rents, and Chapter 259, Article 5, Service Rates and Charges of the Village of Ossining Code, which local law will allow the Finance Department to accept partial payments and overpayments of sewer rents and water charges. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Call for a public hearing, proposed local law 6/2020, titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 118 Environmental Quality Review of the Village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on September 16, 2020 at the Joseph J. Caputo Community Center Gymnasium, 95 Broadway, Ossining, New York, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 6/2020 titled A Local Law Amending Chapter 118 Environmental Quality Review of the Village of Ossining Code, which local law includes technical changes to the code to be consistent with the revision to the New York State regulations for the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? I'll just comment, I believe this is our sixth and last call for a public hearing on local laws this evening. We have been working on local laws all along, and these are the six that were ready to go. And we look forward to being able to have a public hearing in 2 weeks. And I just want to let folks know, with public hearings, we will call for the public hearing. Folks can come and speak in person. They can speak virtually in 2 weeks. We will then have the opportunity to either close the public hearing that night or to keep it open. So if some of these potential local laws suggest to us that there are more people who would like to comment or would like to keep it open for any reason, we can keep it open. But if it's something that we feel it's appropriate to move along and that 1 week of public hearing is sufficient, then we may close the public hearing next week. We encourage anybody who has an interest in being able to comment on any of these to please join us, either virtually or in person, or to write to us at bot@villageofossining.org. And there is actually very little information about what these laws really are in these resolutions. However, they're all available on the village website. If you go to villageofossining.org, go to the departments, Corporation Counsel, who is our legal head, and look under local legislation. All of the proposed local laws that we're talking about tonight and everything we've been working on in 2020 is available online. If you can't find it, just go ahead and email us and we'll send you the link to find it directly. Sometimes it's tough navigating websites, so we try our best to make it easy to find. All right, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Authorizing issuing a request for proposals for development and implementation of an online permitting system for the building and planning departments. Resolved that the village manager is authorized to issue a request for proposals for development and implementation of an online permitting system for the building and planning departments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Comments on the board?
No.
All right, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Authorizing issuing a request for proposals for an engineering firm to perform construction management services for the new Indian Brook Water Treatment Facility. Resolved that the village manager is authorized to issue requests for proposals for an engineering firm to perform construction management services for the new Indian Brook Water Treatment Facility. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Authorizing issuing a request for proposals for insurance broker services. Resolved that the village manager is authorized to issue requests for proposals for insurance broker services. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Authorizing issuing a request for proposals for third-party administrative services for the village's workers' compensation program effective January 1st, 2021. Resolved that the village manager is authorized to issue requests for proposals for the third-party administrator services for the village's workers' compensation program effective January 1st, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? I'll just say that with these last couple that we've seen here, we are picking up on conversations we've had before. There are a number of vendors that we work with on a multi-year, on a year-long or a multi-year contract, and we've had some great relationships with folks, but it's just good policy for us to periodically go out and put out an RFP and make sure that we're getting the best deal possible for the people of Ossining. And so we set up a schedule for those that we were going to review each year and put out an RFP, and that's what we're moving forward with some of these here. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Fire Department Washington Hook and Ladder, number 2, appointment. Resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Julianne Fuseri, Ossining, New York, was elected an active member of Washington Hook and Ladder Company, number 2, for interior fighter fighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
All those, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Oh,
Fire-
just one second. Trustee Fritchie, I just saw you look at me. I didn't hear you say anything. Did you want to comment on that before we moved on?
No, I want to just go on record that I am an active member of the fire department, and that, you know, I will be not recusing myself from voting for members coming in.
We are very excited to have new members coming in and happy to have your vote along with ours, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Fire Department Monitor House Company, number 4, appointment. Resolved that upon recommendation of the Fire Chief, Daniel Bianciamano, Ossining, New York, was elected an active member of Monitor Hose Company, number 4, for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Fire Department, Ossining Fire Police and Emergency Squad, appointment. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Nicholas Ferraro, Ossining, New York, was elected an active member of Ossining Fire Police and Emergency Squad for interior firefighting. All those in, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to continuing business of the board. Topic A, status report regarding Hudson Crest project.
I believe we are welcoming Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan to give us an update here.
Yep.
Yes, I hear Stuart, but
He's signing on, and I spoke to him and Mr. Malter, and they both said he was signing on. I'm not sure where he is, but let me just bring the board up to date if I might. The board was provided with my memo from about 2 weeks ago detailing the current financial situation with regard to Hudson Crest. The situation is simply that as of today's date, the management of Hudson Crest is no longer with Ossining Land. It is with an entity called, it's with an entity that was created by the lender, because as of today's date, The debt on the property is $11,810,371.72. Mr. Lieberman and Mr. Malter have until October 30th to purchase their interest back. If they take till October 30th, the total debt will be $12,281,479.46. And that does not include the other judgments that are outstanding with regard to this project. As I've indicated to you, there is a general contractor who filed 2 mechanics liens less than a month ago, totaling $270,000, $260,000, I apologize. There's another lawsuit that is pending, seeking $175,000. We have recently sent a letter to the demolition bonding company, because although their time to complete the demolition runs in about another month, the work is not done and the demolition contractor has not been paid. So there are significant financial issues. I have confirmed with the attorney who has represented Hudson Crest in their Westchester County lawsuit regarding with their lender that October 30 is basically the drop dead date, that if in fact they do not buy back their interest at that time, the lender would be free to sell the interest at that point. And if they sell it at a deficiency, that deficiency would have to be made up by Mr. Malter and Mr. Lieberman. As I also pointed out to you in my email, Mr. Lieberman personally has some very significant judgments against him, including a judgment that is in excess of $19 million from the district court out in Nevada. That judgment has been entered in New York courts, including in Westchester County. I just saw from Mr. Lieberman that he wants the meeting ID resent. Jamie, if that's at all possible that you can do that, it would be greatly appreciated.
No problem.
Essentially, the best way to say it is there are severe financial issues facing Ossining Land, putting aside the issues that relate to Mr. Lieberman and Mr. Malter at this time. There has been no recent work done on the project. I can also point out, folks, and I think I've sent you this, but just so it's on the record, there are just under $600,000 in property taxes that are owed to the village, town, and school district as of today, and that's as of yesterday. The town is owed $554,996.27. The village is owed $164,118.11. The village property taxes that are owed represent almost 31% of the open tax liens owed to the village. The money owed to the school and town represents 23% of the open tax liens that are owed to those entities. And the total taxes owed as of yesterday was $719,114.38. Under our code, all of those taxes need to be paid before a building permit can be issued. In addition, before the building permit is issued and in accord with the special waterfront permit that this board issued, there must be a payment made of $192,500 for work that was done off-site. In addition, obviously, there would be the building permit fee itself. So all that would have to be paid before any building permit could be issued. So those are also significant amounts that are due and owing. The taxes obviously continue to accrue interest on a daily basis. As I said, as of yesterday, it was just under $720,000 total that's owed. So from a financial perspective, it's very, very problematic, to put it mildly. The variance issued by the zoning board, that extension expires in December of this year. The village's special waterfront permit expires as of January of 2021, and the planning board's site plan expires in May of 2021. And those are the 3 permits that are out there. There is a concern because while the building has been demolished, the debris has not been removed. And there is a concern from the building department that the Smith Robinson House, which is a historic structure on site, is left basically open to the elements as a result of the demolition that was done. There has been no recent work that has been done on site other than the demolition that was done, I believe, just before the pandemic or just after, but there's been nothing recent done on site. The building department has not received a set of sealed plans from the applicant, so those plans have not been provided. So as I think this description provides, there is a great deal outstanding and much that needs to be done. But the key date is right now is October 30, because again, if the applicant is unable to essentially buy back their interest, then the purchasers, if you want to call it straw man, the company that they created, would be free to sell the interest and free to sell the property. At that point, they'd be selling it with the approvals, I should point out. So the approvals would go with the sale, but those approvals, as I said, do start to lapse beginning with the zoning variance in December, followed a month later by the special waterfront permit that is issued by this board. As board members are no doubt aware, there were numerous these approvals were previously granted both by this board, planning board, and zoning board. They were all allowed to lapse, and we are, it appears, rapidly approaching the same situation here. So that's what I've got. It does not appear yet that Mr. Lieberman has come on, but nope. So, and I know he was resent the information. That's the update.
3 times. Jamie,
Did you have?
I've sent it 3 times.
Okay.
Okay.
So I feel like I'm hearing myself a lot. Okay, I'll take this off. There we go. Is that better? So a couple of questions, and I'm sorry that Mr. Lieberman is not here with us to be able to help us understand what's really going on. But do we know if they are actively seeking a buyer? I know that there are people that might be directed to them. That have they been receptive to anybody who might be interested in purchasing the property?
The only thing that I comment on is that in the most recent order from the court, there was a provision that the lender is not permitted to contact specifically 2 individuals, one identified as a Mr. Eric Schleffler and the other a Chris Pardo. I was able to ascertain that Mr. Schleffler is the managing partner of a company called Invictus Real Estate, which leads me to believe that there must be some contact between Ossining Land and this gentleman. I do not know who Mr. Pardo is at all. I could not find him anywhere. So other than that information, I've seen nothing. Whenever I have communicated with Mr. Lieberman, he has not indicated any interest in a sale. And one of the reasons given was the large number of judgments against him.
It seems that Mr. Lieberman has just joined us.
He's just joined us.
Right here. Hi. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties.
Mr. Lieberman, I've been giving the board a rundown of what's been going on, particularly with regard from the financial end in terms of all the judgments that are outstanding. And I presume that there may be some questions from the board members.
Okay.
Mr. Lieberman, I'll just reiterate the question that I
Just asked, which was, have you expressed any interest or done any investigation on if you might sell your property? Okay. I'm also concerned about the historic home, and demolition was done, but there needs to be some securing of the property to make sure that the integrity of the historic home is preserved. Is that something that you are planning to undertake before the weather turns any worse?
Coming up tomorrow. It's my first day north of 14th Street.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll look
We'll
forward
look forward
to
to
that
that
happening.
happening.
Thank you.
Okay.
My
My
colleagues have any other questions or comments?
I wish you actually were still having technical difficulties, because I really have a lot to say, but I'm going to hold myself because I want to be better. I've been in this board for many years, and this project has been in front of us for many years, and we have done everything right to help you out. And to me, honesty in what you have done to this community is a disgrace. It's really a disgrace. So I took my mask off so you can actually see my whole face and see the anger that I have. And this is not the first time I have shown you my frustration. I'm really looking forward to the next developer that buys your property. Maybe that person has the potential to do what you could not do for our village.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Lieberman or for Corporation Counsel? Or our planner is here as well, if they have any other questions.
No, I mean, we've had these conversations before. I haven't been on the board. Sorry. Trying to be good about that. I don't, I've been on this board not as long as Manny Casada has, but I drive by that area often, and it's really a shame. It's a shame that this didn't have to happen, that you let this happen, that we have been speaking to your people and you so many times. You know, our job is to represent the public. We do the best we can. We wish that developers would do the best they can. You are, at one of the meetings I said that you're just a bad neighbor. But when I was led to understand and be educated about the amount of taxes you owe this village, we're not a large village. An amount around 600,000 is very meaningful. I will tell you, Mr. Lieberman, that if I didn't pay my taxes for as long as you haven't, I'd be out on the street. So when Manny Casada says we've done everything we can, the public needs to know that we really have, because we had high hopes. It's a wonderful piece of property with a view of the Hudson, with lots going on in that part of town, a lot of good stuff. And I guess this will take its natural course, and I am sure that our attorney will keep us apprised of the various movements. You will take your course. We, at this point, will have to take ours. I don't regret the amount of help we gave you, hoping for the best, but I think that not only by the tone of voice, but for the past 2 years, the conversations we've had apparently were not taken seriously. So I'm sorry, but I guess sort of the end of that. But I really do feel badly that this has gone the way it has. And Manny's voice, I think, speaks for me as well. I'm not going to speak for the other trustees, but in our conversations, I think he speaks well for all of us on this.
Any other comments or questions, or anything that the staff wanted to fill us in on or ask Mr. Lieberman while he's with us?
Would like to say something, Mr. Lieberman. I'm sure you recognize me from being on the zoning board. I put up with you there. Now I'm new on the board here. And just to be honest, I'm just totally disappointed with the
it looked like a nice project, and it's just a sheer disappointment. And I wasn't here in the beginning of it, but I'm here on the tail end of it, and hopefully the end of it. And hopefully things get better from here.
Alrighty, I think all of us in elected office have had an opportunity to ask our questions or make our comments. Stuart, Jaime, Karen, if there's anything else you want to ask Mr. Lieberman, I encourage you to. Mr. Lieberman, if there's anything else you'd like to let us know while you're here with us, you're welcome to speak.
I'll be able to make some more determinations after that. I'll be there working with the demolition contractor.
Okay, I didn't hear all of that, but it sounds like you're going to be up here in Ossining tomorrow with a demolition contractor taking a look at the status of the property, and we will look forward to hearing from staff any updates.
Building secure.
Thank you. That is very important to us. I appreciate the follow-up on that particularly. All right. Seeing no further comments on this, I thank you, Mr. Lieberman, for joining us and hearing our comments. Stuart. Thank you. All righty. Madam Clerk, I'll just, Stuart, is there anything else on this item or anything else related to this before we move on? Okay. We're good. Is there any other continuing business? Any new business on the board? Okay. Madam Clerk, I was just continuing because of all of our microphones. I was trying to minimize the microphone, but I'll turn mine off for a second.
Okay. Is there anybody here from the public or online on Zoom that would like to address the board on any topic? Please be aware that you have a 3-minute opportunity to address the board, okay? And please state your name when you come. Thank you.
Nicholas Caputo, private citizen. As I said, I was born on Snowden Avenue, grew up on Broadway. Okay, it was an interracial neighborhood. I put the first first basket up for the whole neighborhood. Isn't it interesting when you see what's going on now in the neighborhoods that are not tended by these Democratic mayors? Black families in our area, the Baileys, Everetts, Hortons, Callaways, Desiso, Nelsons, I remember all their names. Black families, they owned houses. All of us Caucasians, we rented. But we were too young to understand that these black families were great black families. Okay, and they didn't destroy it. They built up our neighborhood, made it better. And we got along with no problem at all. There was no racism in those days, 50s and 60s. But let me just say this. When you watch this today and you see what's happening, and they use a term called peaceful protesters, it's amazing. But that's my background where I came from. So I doubt if any of you even came from that. If you did, that's fine, but there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, now, I had this shirt made that you see in the back supporting the police. I'll tell you what took me over the top. I read The Pigs in a Blanket before. That got me going. When I watched the riots there, and I watched 3 black cops in New York City at the barricade, and several white women spitting at them, calling them racist, calling them traitors, calling them Uncle Toms. Don't you people here in America see all that going on? Does anybody understand it? I think they're going to understand it. The cops are the most important part of our society, and all I say to you is if somebody breaks into your house, call Joe Biden and the Black Lives Matter group, because they will probably be able to catch the perpetrators.
Is there anybody virtually?
I'm not seeing anyone virtually. I believe we have, would you like to speak, Mr. Perillo?
Good evening. My name is John Perillo, and I reside at 72 Havel Street in Ossining. Since 1967, I've had business interest on Havel Street. For the past 20 years, I live on Havel Street. Havel Street needs to be addressed, and I'll tell you why. It's a narrow street, as we all know, but from the beginning of Havel Street to probably 33 Havel Street, near Sabrina Lane, it's getting very contentious. People are playing chicken, who goes up the street first. Sometimes cars getting back of cars. People are getting out of their cars. They want you to drive on the sidewalks now in that first stretch along Al's Glass. And if the board wants to check, the original plans of that curb cut was supposed to be a regular curb cut. But for some reason, it's a long curb cut and people are driving on the sidewalk. The problem is there's little kids on that street that play in their yard and the ball bounces and something's going to happen there. So several years ago, when I was mayor, we had the police department look at a traffic study there. It is possible to make Havel Street from the beginning to Sabrina Lane one way. And then from that point, it could be two ways. It'll be more controlled. Just coming here tonight, I ran into a problem. Taxis park their cars. Last week, a delivery furniture truck blocked the street for 20 minutes, okay? And I'll have to tell you that when I say the word contentious, I'm talking about people, including myself, possibly rolling on the ground with somebody there. And it needs to be addressed. So I would appreciate, I'm going to try to make an appointment with the chief of police and go into more details. Also, it seems to me taxi cabs and many other people do not pay attention to stop signs. I know it's a low-level crime. Maybe the police department doesn't have time to do that, but low-level crimes probably breed high-level crimes. You just repaved the area of Brandon Street, put up some new stop signs. They're still just shooting up to Ann Street. I mean, it's very, very difficult,
30 seconds.
Dangerous. All over the town, the taxi cabs think that they own the streets. You know, they give you the finger, they swear at you the F word, and, you know, something needs to be done about this. Maybe the chief can call in the taxi cabs, and I'm singling out the taxi cabs because I'm around the village all the time, and they seem to be the most offenders. Now, luckily, there's no school going on with the with middle school and Claremont School, but they are the worst violators. So I appreciate the time. I would like to make one comment. Maybe you've already done it. We had two longtime village employees pass away, Danny Cicedo and Bill Dias. Maybe at some meeting you could pass the meeting in honor of them or separately, whatever. And lastly, the last question I would like to ask, does this village board back the blue? No answer? Okay, thank you.
I do see that someone virtually has their hand raised, so I'm going to click allow to talk. Susan Sylvester?
Hi. Yes. My name is Susan Sylvester. I live at Butler Place here in Ossining. And I just want to comment that the two speakers who spoke on Zoom, I couldn't understand not one word they were saying. And I'm sure that any of the trustees or other people that are on Zoom, they probably couldn't hear either. But with all the echoes, I don't know if their mic was just, the mic that was recording was from a, but curious to know what they were saying and I don't know if the audio could be fixed and have them say it again, but anyone on Zoom could not understand a word. And I just wanted everyone to be aware of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We have been struggling to get all of the sound to work for everyone in every wherever they are, in a Zoom room or in here in the room, and this is, as we said, our first go around at this. I can tell you that going forward, as required by New York State Open Meetings Law, every meeting there is a transcript that is provided. I know that this will be it's being broadcast. I believe we're trying to broadcast it tonight. Did we get to broadcast it live tonight, or it'll be broadcast tomorrow? It's being recorded.
It's broadcast on Zoom right now, yes.
It's broadcasting on Zoom, but on broadcasting on public access, not yet, right? That'll be
I believe
hopefully
that it
tomorrow.
will be tomorrow morning.
Okay, and we're not sure exactly if that's going to be the Zoom broadcast or the broadcast in the room broadcast, right? So we're still
I
figuring out
think it's going
what's
to come
gonna
down
be-
to which is the cleanest version.
Right,
Yeah.
which one people can actually get all the information on.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And our camera operator is saying that his camera is going to be the one, and he thinks that he can hear us all pretty well. So hopefully, when folks watch this the next day, they'll be able to watch it, and there will be a written transcript. And then I'd like to think that by the next time we're here in a couple of weeks, that we'll have worked out some of the kinks, and it'll be a little more streamlined as well. But thank you very much for calling that to our attention. I see that we have.
Just a point of order here. Did Mrs. Sylvester say that John and I, none of it was understood by the public? Tom, is that going to be understood when we repeat it? Yes. Oh, we'll be clear the next one. Okay. Thanks for you. Thank you.
Yeah, there was just a problem with the Zoom session of it.
Alrighty. Thank you very much, Ms. Sylvester. Thank you to our visitors, and yes,
I would just, let me unmute myself, hold on.
and I will mute myself.
You know, I would just like to say, this is our first time doing this, and we've expressed it, so even us at the tables here are having technical difficulties, so we do apologize for anyone that is having problem with Zoom hearing us. We're not just pushing you off and saying wait till the thing, this is something, it's a work in progress. Hopefully we get it ironed out and it becomes a smoother process. Hopefully the pandemic would just go away and we can go back to normal, but we don't see that happening. So your voices are being heard, so please don't think that we're not hearing you. Again, we're having difficulties sitting next to each other as it is. So, but thank you.
Not seeing any further comments, then I believe we will have a motion to go. Is there anything else, Madam Clerk, that I'm forgetting about? No?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, I don't see any other visitors that are raising their hand. So I would ask for a motion to go into executive session for matters related to collective bargaining and matters of personnel related to specific persons.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience, and we look forward to seeing you next week, entirely virtually. So that's a format that we have figured out over the past few months. So we'll be in the Zoom room next week for a work session, and then back here in this room with the next legislative session, which includes a number of public hearings, and hopefully we'll have figured out some of the audio challenges that we were experiencing this evening. This meeting is adjourned to executive session.